Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Mustard Seed. I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
Join us on our journey.
I almost did it on my own because I was last week I was explaining the past couple of weeks I've been saying hey, I'm Andrew, and I'm waiting for Ryan, and I almost just went on my own. So felt good hearing you guys talk.
There we go.
Yeah, all right.
We've created such a intro routine that when we
Yeah.
kind of deviate from that, it always feels a little
I didn't say it last week, so we post on Thursday.
That's right.
It was Thursday morning.
we're confusing everyone, but we're back. We're three
back.
of us are back.
The three tired dads, the three tired workers.
Yeah, we should be
Yeah.
rebranding the podcast to the three tired workers, right?
The three tired
dads.
workers.
What do we got today? You got a new.
So what do you want
list?
to do? I got
You got options.
I got three options. I got the top 5 hated sports franchises. I got the top five visited websites, most visited websites. I got the top five busiest airports, and that's it.
You got a lot.
Yeah. What
Let's
do you think?
let's do airports.
Airports.
Yeah, let's
Sounds
shake it
good.
up. Let's do top 5 busiest airports.
Josh, lead us
Whoa.
in temptation.
I don't really know, airports. LaGuardia.
So it's like cities.
Cities.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
New
top
York,
5.
does that count?
So New
as,
York City.
One?
New York.
New York is not on the list.
New York's not on the list.
No.
This is a rigged.
Oh wait, I messed up. Biggest airports.
biggest
Yeah,
airport.
biggest.
Oh, okay,
That's a
biggest.
big
biggest.
top 5 biggest airports. See, I
Biggest.
told you we're tired.
Okay. All right, so that changes.
Yeah.
That changes a little bit.
Well, I gave you a hint already. New York is not.
it's
there.
not on the list. Dallas.
Dallas is number 2.
Okay.
You were just in Dallas.
Yeah, I was in
So-
Dallas. That's why it's a pretty big airport.
I
I think Atlanta's up there.
Yeah, Atlanta's number 1.
There we go. Atlanta's number 1. I want to say Chicago O'Hare.
Chicago's number 4. Ryan travels a
I
lot for work.
travel.
yeah, I'm gonna let you take this one.
So you got 3
We got
and 5.
Is Denver on there?
Denver's 3.
There we go. Number 5. I want to say Orlando.
No.
No.
You would think they got that train.
Is it
and,
LAX? Is it Los
Yeah,
Angeles?
it's LA.
There we
Yep.
go.
Los Angeles.
All right.
Boom.
Boom. We did it.
I've been in the Atlanta one. I've
Yeah,
been
I've
in
never
a
been in
a
Atlanta.
Hawaii one, which is very tiny. But I would think Orlando would be on that list because they have that train where they bring you. I remember it just being so big.
Yeah, Orlando feels big, right?
It feels
From all the
huge.
Disney trips, I
Yeah.
would think of Orlando as pretty big. How many places have you guys traveled to? How many have you guys been outside of the country?
Japan and Canada.
You've done a lot of
Yeah.
traveling, right? I've only been to Dominican Republic outside of the country. You've been to Japan and Canada? So
Yeah,
those are the
and
two?
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. I've never been out of the country.
Never been out of the country. But
Probably
what
never
about
leave the country again.
what about states? How many states have you guys traveled to?
I've been to a lot. That's one thing that
Made
So I've been-
your ways?
California. I've been to Arizona.
Nice.
The farthest
been to-
west I've been is Ohio and Chicago.
That's it.
Oh,
And
really?
Hawaii.
Oh well, yeah,
Oh,
you
well,
just said
that's-
Hawaii.
that's
I was gonna
pretty
say
far.
that's pretty
Yeah,
far.
I forgot about Hawaii. But pretty much the whole East Coast.
Yeah, I've been on the whole East Coast. I just went to California for the first time.
Yeah, I never been to Cali.
Yeah.
I want to. Me and Jess have a whole plan in 5 years to go to Disneyland because Logan loves cars and they have a whole car land.
Oh, really?
So that would be cool to do.
That's pretty neat.
Nice. Very cool.
But by that
I've
point,
done the whole East Coast. Yeah.
East Coast.
And
by that
then-
point, by that point, we're a little.
You guys are keep going back and forth to each other.
It's all good.
quality.
So we've traveled. Yeah.
Yeah,
we've
as
traveled.
Done some traveling,
We've
yeah.
done some traveling.
So I
for sure.
toured with a scene group in college, and we would go to we would do East Coast, West Coast tours,
Oh,
all
wow.
that stuff. So that's kind of where did the most traveling was with that group.
Nice.
My favorite was like we did like a southern thing. So it was like Florida and New Orleans and all that. Like
Wow.
we did a big trip with that, and that was really great.
That's pretty
A
cool.
lot of fun.
I feel like I haven't been to too many places, to be honest. There was a time where every time I would travel or go to a different airport, I'd buy a magnet.
I did that too, and then I stopped.
And we
'cause
had
was,
it
like,
on
too
the,
much.
yeah. And then, yeah, I didn't do it the last trip. It's like, these magnets are expensive. I
Probably
can't
20
afford
bucks
these.
now.
We actually just saw, we just met someone. It was pretty cool. Someone, I don't have to go into the backstory, but basically these people were moving and they're moving to Alaska from Long Island. It's like, wow.
I
It
know
was pretty
someone who
crazy.
moved from Alaska to here.
Wow.
Yeah,
Like
I worked with them for a little bit.
every time I think of Alaska, I just think of those shows on Discovery Channel, like The Last Frontier and like all those different things.
One of the first things that people ask is like, did you eat moose? That's
Do you
like
eat
one of-
moose in Alaska?
Yeah.
Is that on the menu?
And he said yes.
I just think if you're living
There's-
in Alaska, you're hunting your food. Like if you need to eat, you got to go get it.
Yeah, it's like the loneliest state.
Yeah, right. That's
Not a lot of people there.
Is it? This might be a stupid question, but is there a direct trail to Alaska from Washington? Like, there's got to be,
I think so.
because they're not connected, correct?
Canada.
Canada is in between, but there's got to be a.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
But no matter what, you have to go through Canada. Yeah. Okay. I always figured that was the case, but
Unless maybe take a boat.
yeah,
and then
right.
go
Can
the
you
other
go
way.
around? Go around it. Yeah, exactly.
Take a moose.
Take a moose. So we've all had some busy weeks, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was doing some reflecting, it reminded me a lot of like the whole Peter when he cut off the guy's ear, and like the emotion that he was going through at that time. Like people don't really stop to think like right before that he was told that he's going to betray his God 3 times and deny him. So like he's pumped with like energy and like anxiety, like I can't let this happen, and then thinking like this is one of the moments, and
That's true. There was a lead up to that for sure, right? Just naturally, that emotion, how you would feel if you were told that, yeah, you were gonna deny. Yeah.
that was one of the stories. Like when I was praying, like with my week of being stressful and just going through everything, that I did one of my Bible flips, and it came up actually twice. So I was
Wow.
like, okay, you're telling me something. Let me read this.
How did you feel like that related to kind of like the week for you? Like,
I just felt like it's like you're pushing yourself and going in, like he was preparing for like war at that moment and like ready for confrontation, and Jesus like pushed him back to be like, calm down and just guide him that way.
yeah. Do you
Like,
feel like
follow me in this way, and like you don't need to do the confrontation, you don't need to like overthink things, even though at that moment, like we said, like he was going through all those emotions, like couldn't imagine like being told like you're gonna deny me.
Yeah, and having to like accept that or almost be like, no, I'm not gonna let that happen, right? And that's where those emotions come from, for sure. So you felt like that was kind of in your week. You were feeling
Yeah,
a little
to
confident,
like step back and just follow me and just listen.
That's cool. I like how that is. It's always neat how there are little themes that show up in our weeks, right? With different things. Yeah, I took on a different kind of challenge this week. I listened to I forget who it was on Pints with Aquinas. It was just a clip that I saw on YouTube. So I think it was he probably was on in a past episode, but he was talking about like his daily routine with prayer.
Oh, is it Ralph Martin? He's like an older guy.
Yeah, an older guy. Yeah. And he was talking about how he like starts each day and literally like bows on the floor
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
that whole
I
process.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was an interesting thing, and I tried to kind of adopt that a little bit more this week to really like, because I've noticed over the past few weeks I've kind of separated myself from like the quiet prayer time. So I was like, let me try and get back into that. And then hearing him talk about that, it's like that's really interesting. Like I kind of want to create that, like feel that, like the whole idea of like bowing before God and like how you humble yourself. And I was like, it it was difficult. Like I was like, this feels kind of different and funny. And then I was like, why? I was like thinking about that. Like, why do I feel that way? Right. Cause I was like trying to really imagine that. Like if we were in the presence of Jesus Christ, like he's in front of us, like how would you react? Right. And my thought was just like, I couldn't put myself in that situation. And I was like really kind of sitting with that. And I was like, why? Like, what is it? Cause then I'm like thinking about the earth and the creation. It's like, wait, like if God truly made me, if God made the world, like how would I react? How would I feel if I've seen him? And even that, sometimes I was like, I don't appreciate that as much anymore. And I realized, like, I thought about it. I was like, is it because of how much is available to us from like a technology sense, or like what is created by humans today, that there's almost like a little less value on the fact that like this is God's created earth? Does that make sense? Like I felt like I've had that sort of like, if you can just instantaneously kind of do whatever you want with your phone, like you kind of just lose that deeper appreciation of the fact that like God created everything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
well, it's kind of like a distraction that kind of leads to like you kind of take stuff for granted. You know, you get kind of wrapped up in the techne, and then you kind of lose track of like what's around you almost, and then the kind of the real, like the natural sense of the world and what it means. And yeah, I feel that 100%. Honestly,
right?
that's great reflection. Totally. Yeah, I have to say. So I like to kneel in the morning, like when I do prayer, and so I feel that way too sometimes. It's like why am I doing this? Or like why am I like would I actually do this? And if Christ was really here. And yeah, I think that's like a good reflection, and it's a good like mindset to kind of put yourself in, and that way you kind of like remind yourself like, oh, because he's the king of the universe, you know?
Yeah,
Because he's the Lord of all, like
yeah,
you know, all of creation, and it can really help, even just in that prayer time and in that moment, just like reflecting on who he is and reminding yourself who he is can really obviously help in that. And I think that's the idea behind like getting your body involved with prayer like that. Is it like forces you to really think about what you're doing. And that, like I think that's, you know, like the whole Catholic calisthenic like stuff that we do at Mass, the fact that we're constantly moving, standing, sitting, kneeling. It's like we're like invoking our bodily element into the action of prayer as well, not just like our mind or our speaking. Like
yeah, right.
it adds that whole.
And don't you feel like even that you sometimes like can take for granted in the sense of just like, we kneel, we stand, we sit at church. It's like just what we do. But
I know, yeah. And then coming in as a Protestant, like I was like, what the heck is going on? Why are we constantly moving? Like, why can't we just sit still? But then like remember, like understanding the importance of it and what it means is like, yeah, it's important to reflect on.
yeah. It was a nice feeling though when I did kind of settle into it, as far as just like that quiet prayer. I was like, I felt something out of it, you know, like a little bit more than normal, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I realized how quickly I've run away from those like quiet prayer times, but I'm like, that goes such a long way, right? Like I feel like,
I know, it's always the first thing to go.
yeah,
That is, yeah, true. It was always the first thing to go, and then that's when you realize like how you need to go get back into it and start like praying and talking to God. Just like talking. Like some people just use it like as like, you know, a wish list. Like, oh, yep, I want this. All right, see you later. Yeah. But it's like really just like developing that relationship and just talking. Something I wanted to like talk about. You just brought up a fact of that you were used to be Protestant, and then coming into the Catholic Church is like you're probably more like, once you accept it into your heart and everything, you're probably more like, you probably like reached like a fulfillment faster than like we did, because we like grew up with it, you know, and it was just like kind of like what you were saying, like the up down, it's just like muscle memory. And like he came in like ready to accept the Lord and all that, and just like taking everything in, and it's just probably a lot more. And then like we get to that point, like I've gotten to that point where like Mass has moved us, and like I think you told us once the first time you went how touching it was and how you just felt it, and it's just like crazy, like God's just there in that moment.
No, definitely. And I think the thing about like, well, just Protestants and like converts in general is there's this sense of like a decision that's being made. And so you're kind of given this, it's kind of, the gospel's like laid out for you, and you have like the opportunity to accept it, to like receive it, and then make a decision in that moment, like for Christ, and to like live for him. And I feel like when people make that decision, like they tend to like really, it like strikes them in such a way that they become kind of almost changed by it. It becomes like a foundation that they kind of build upon. And I think oftentimes with cradle Catholics, it becomes like, well, this is what we've always done, and that's just it. Like, it's good, I've learned about it, and this is good, but there's never that decision that like, this is mine, and I like this, or that I want this. It just becomes like I've just kind of done this, you know.
This is what I have to do.
Yeah, I think that's like the key point right there. Like for like us, like for myself, like taking that next step where I was like, this is what I want. Like this is it. Like there's a reason why I'm Catholic. Like I'm going after it, right? And not everyone has that moment.
You even said like we've both went through that like back burner part, like right? Yeah. With it, like, where it's like, okay, I'm going, I got to do this, you know, where that's probably more from us, just like the routine, just going like, okay, yeah, this is something I got to do.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And even just like, you know, the pressures of friends and things like that. Like you're just kind of like, I'm living my life. Like I don't need to really worry about like my faith right now or whatever it is. Or like you said, there's almost more when you can kind of make that choice like that. That's a huge step in a faith journey for sure, to really embrace it more so. And that's why like, yeah, as a convert, like you're making that choice just so deliberately, where like, as someone who's grown up in the faith, like you don't necessarily maybe think like you have to make that choice, but there is that part of your life where you're like taking the next step. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think everyone has to make that thing. Like I don't think it needs to be this big slap in the face moment, you know. But eventually, this is going to come a time like what you guys have experienced. Like now, you're kind of there where it's like I've made this decision. I'm an adult who decides to go to church on Sundays, or decides to, you know, read the Bible during the week, or to watch videos or whatever, to try to make those little changes. And all of that is like, you know, it's grace. It's allowing the Lord to come in and to make changes within you and within your life. And I think just by you making those steps, like that's what everyone needs to do. And I think that's more or less what it's all about, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like too, you get to that point where you're like, this is cool. Like we're in a groove. We want to share it with people too, right? At the end of the day, you're like, come on, there's something neat about this.
There's one thing too, like we all have that guardian angel that's with us, that constantly wants to help you, that's like with you your whole life. And I watched this video on it, and it's like, wow, like how much we probably like neglect
our guardian angel.
Them,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. There's something so real about that for sure. Like that's such a cool thing.
Right now they're clapping like, yeah, we're here.
We're here. We are here. Yeah, I mean, there's so many like really neat parts of our faith. I went through that this week with the Catechism of the Year. I sent it to you as well.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Have you been up on Catechism, like going through it a bit?
James had me laughing, saying, "No spoilers. I'm on 70."
He's on day 73. So that's the beauty of that journey, though. You can do it at any point in time. You know, like that's the cool part. But just recently, I'm behind. But it was the laity. They were talking about I don't remember what day it was, but I sent it to you guys. Day 125, yeah, the vocation of the laity. But I felt like it kind of paired up really well with what you guys were talking about last week, James and yourself, about kind of like acknowledging God and how there's that kind of choice we all have, you know, to acknowledge God, and how we're kind of going to be faced with that question at the end of our lives, you know, like, did you recognize or acknowledge me? But just to kind of tie in what we were talking about before too, it's like, there's that choice for us and our mission, like as laity, which was so cool. I had never heard it before, but the way Father Mike was talking about it was like, for us as lay people, like we are also kind of graced with this mission as well. Like you think of priests and, you know, religious life as kind of the ultimate source of faith into this world. but like how much we are that source of faith in this world, and even more so in different ways because we're out in the world, you know? So like we have this mission to kind of basically in each moment decide I'm going to bring Christ into this moment. And that can be like at work, you know, at home, right? Like we're graced with probably the most important mission, and that's bringing faith into our family, into our home. Like, and I just thought that was so cool. Like I love kind of putting faith into a way of like, almost like, no, I don't want to say like you're a soldier for Christ, but like, I just love that kind of idea of like, yeah, I'm taking on this challenge and I'm kind of living out, you know, how I'm supposed to live. And that aspect of it kind of ties into just like when we take that yes and we're like, okay, I'm going to live it and I'm going to bring it into every moment of my life, you know? It's cool.
Yeah, it's a mission.
It's a mission.
And that's, you know, a good way to put it. Like it really is a mission if you want to think of it that way. Like a soldier on a mission.
And that's the main thing. Like when you sit back and see what's happening in today's world, it's like we are under attack, and
Yeah.
we need to do things like this. We need to plant those seeds and just talk about the importance of God.
Definitely.
And just
And
push
how it
it
can
out
feel
there, because like
uncomfortable.
everything's there's so there's so much like going on right now, like where they're going after the children with like
Oh my goodness.
this ridiculous notion of things. I don't even want to talk about
I've
it. but
removed
it's
myself
just, like,
recently from the news, so I'm kind of
it's not good. Like
I'm a little lost.
it makes
in
you
that.
sick.
Yeah, I've gotten to a point where I was
when
like, I
it's
don't
just-
even want to.
But then it's like you got to see what is being said by the enemy, because then you have to bring light to, like, get it out of here. Which,
Yeah, I feel like it's like a balancing act that I've kind of found, because I found myself like a year and a half ago kind of diving a little too deep into the news, and it was really stealing my peace, and I was getting nervous about all this stuff and like angry and just being so upset about everything. But in the same token, it's like you shouldn't remove yourself completely, because you want to be aware in case you need to like know what's going on. Exactly what you're saying, like know your enemy in a sense of like. But in the same token, you don't want it to ruin your
The main
peace
thing
and
is,
joy
like,
and all that.
they got to stay away from the children, and like that's the
that's
main
crazy.
thing. It's like, as Catholics and Christians, like we are frowned upon and looked at as people who judge and dislike gays and all that stuff and all those topics. And you know, we don't hate you. We can disagree with what you're doing and think it's not right. Like we're not spewing hate. Like we're not gonna like force you to be a certain way. Like, but like you don't try to normalize it in a way. Like
That's a great word, because that's what it all becomes down to. I think like everything just hasn't been normalized, right? Like abortion just been normalized, you know, and now it's like you're taking
Which-
away right, and it's like, wait a second, back up.
Hold
When
on,
did
hold
this
on.
become a right?
Crazy
Yeah,
thing.
healthcare. What?
Crazy thing with the abortion is so the Nelk Boys, the creator of Happy Dads,
Yeah.
which I don't know what they are, but they did this thing.
Their characters.
Yeah, they brought their cat and said, "Oh, my cat wants to get an abortion," and they're like, "No, it's against the law to do that." And they started questioning, like, "What do you mean? It's okay for if I go down the block if my girl's pregnant to get this aborted, but this cat has more rights than a human baby?" You know, it's insane.
It is insane. Like you can go to great lengths with just like how crazy it is.
Yeah,
But
how crazy stuff is out there. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting world. We live in an interesting time, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like different ways that we can go about doing this stuff. So one of the things that I get to see a lot as a male person is I get to deliver a lot of things for Planned Parenthood, which is like so difficult. And so like I'll get to see the people who are donating, you know, because they'll be like, you know, in their mailing list, and also I'll deliver it to them. And so I just take advantage of like those moments to like pray for those people. Like if I see it and I'm delivering to this house, like I'll just, you know, I'll like stop and I'll pray and yeah. So that's what we have to do, is like just recognize it and pray. Like prayer is like such an important aspect of who we are as Catholics, as Christians. And I feel like that's one thing that like sometimes we just get so distracted and so caught into the world that we forget like we should be doing this like all the time, you know? Like
All the
just
time.
lifting stuff up constantly. Like we can. It's just we get so distracted. But
The best days I think are when I'm praying through
too.
the ebbs and
Yeah.
flows of my day, where it's like
100%.
those quick little step backs of like, okay, you know, like
Yeah.
yeah,
He helps you, man. He helps you. He helps everybody. And if you got to open that door, you know, you got to open that door.
yeah, and just allow that grace to work, you know, yeah, because there is power in that. There's power in prayer. It's sometimes there are moments in my life where I was like, pray, like, what do you mean pray? Like, what is that doing? You know what I mean? But then when you kind of can have those moments and you see how it works, you're like, whoa, okay, this is important.
To go on that, piggyback off that a little bit, it's like when you're going through a rough time and people are like, just pray on it. Like that's the last thing
Sometimes,
people want to
yeah.
hear. That's the last thing you want to hear. It's like, pray about it.
Yeah.
Pray about it. This just happened to me. This is the worst thing in the world. And I saw this thing where this kid out in Texas, he was a farmer. He was 13 years old, and he only got they lived out in the middle of nowhere, and the only station they got was like this Christian station, and he listened to that every day. And he called in to tell a story, and it like kind of touched me. It's like crazy. He's like, his baby cow that he raised and took from birth broke its back, and the next day he had to go out and put it down, and he's praying to God, saying like, God, why do I have to do this? Why? I love this cow. And then he said that God answered him saying like, I understand what you feel. I understand your feeling. I had to sacrifice my only child, like my child. I know the pain you're going through. So like, that's an important thing. Like a lot of people think God's just up here and just the creator and doesn't feel what we feel. Like, how could he feel what we feel? But he felt it all. Like, remember when Jesus died on that cross with that like earthquake that happened, and he felt it all. And that's one thing a lot of people just don't realize. Like, God feels, like he feels for each and every one of us. And one important thing too is like, I saw where with the devil's here on earth, and he like, remember when he offered Jesus, he's like, oh, I'll give you all the kingdoms here. It's worthless. Like, your kingdom is up there. And like that's one thing, like, you can look back at like Jesus saying, get out of here, man.
Yeah.
I don't want your little rock kingdom. I want my gold 24 karat up there.
There you go, right? I think that message is like such an important one for people to hear, because I think for me, that was probably the best counsel that I've ever gotten from anybody. So it was when Claire was in the hospital with the twins, and it was Father Rob. And I never thought that before. And he's had this line that was like, listen, like, Christ is weeping with you. Like, he's with you. Like, and he feels it. And like, he knows what you're going through. And like, I remember just how much that struck me of like, wow, like, that's so true. Like, he doesn't want this to happen, but he's allowing it to happen for some greater growth, for a miracle to happen, right? But like, in the midst of it, like, he knows what you're going through. He's crying with you. Like, let him just be there. Let him be present with you. Like, and that just like really just hit me in the face.
Those are two just so powerful things that you mentioned between that. The fact that everything that we are going through, like, and the faith that we have is real because, right, Christ came to earth and experienced all of that, right? So that's what makes our faith so amazing. And then the fact that our goal is heaven, right? Like, that's the ultimate kingdom. Like, those two things I feel like have to be just constantly like reminded to us, like, as we go through our faith journey. Like, I think those are so powerful for us, because it's so easy to get caught up in the sense of, I'm on this on my own, and like, why am I dealing with this? And then also to think it's so easy to get caught up in just like the pleasures of this world and forget about kind of really ultimately what it is. And at the end of the day, it's the sacrifices, the suffering that's going to lead to the glory in heaven. It's like, it's all right there. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just going back to like how the world is kind of a messed up place right now. We talk about abortion. We talk about like the sexual intersectionalism, all the ideologies of our time. Like, it's important for us to like remember that these people who have been tricked by these ideologies, like, they don't see what we see.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's important for us like to not get angry although it is very, very hard not to get angry at all this stuff because we see how wrong everything is. But like that's one of the last things that we can do is to get to be angry. But I think it's important for us to realize and to be empathetic towards people and to like have them see through us that like walking with people is the way, because Christ is walking with us and we know that, which makes things much better for us. But these people don't have that. So if we be the ones who can walk with them and to maybe show them that, yeah.
And
I like that a lot. That's really cool.
To tie it all back to how we started, and that's exactly what Jesus was telling Peter. That's exactly what he was trying to show him.
Yeah.
So,
Look at that.
There we go.
Connections, man.
Full circle. Full circle.
It's all connected.
Yeah, so it's important for us to remember that, because we're in a time when Satan wants us to be angry. He wants us to be adversarial with our neighbors. He wants us to hate each other and to be disunified and all this stuff. And so it's important for us to be empathetic, to lean into the Lord, receive his graces, but then to give that to others, to love people, to walk with them in the midst of their suffering, because we have no idea like the pain that people experience. And half of these people, they have a dog in the fight. Like the reason why they're pro-abortion is because maybe they've had one and that they're carrying that weight on their shoulders. And so we have to like always be mindful of that when we kind of deal with these things and topics.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I think Pete's got a head.
I was just gonna bring
been
up Pete.
upside down the whole
Yeah,
time.
like,
Pete
noticed,
has
like,
been
5 minutes
punished
ago.
this episode. Maybe start hitting Pete, and you can stand on your feet. We appreciate you guys.
I had a.
We don't appreciate you yet.
No, I want to give a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to Pat. Pat got me this book for Christmas. God's Promises for Your Every Need. It's one of those. It's got like a bunch of Bible verses in it, and it's basically like you pick it up and you just kind of read it. So I picked it up this week to do one of those like you did, kind of give it. I feel like this can, because this was the quote that I got, and I feel like this can connect to everything that we did just talk about. Because at the end of the day, it's all about love, right? You're walking with people, right? God is love, the Holy Trinity, like the whole power of the fact that Jesus suffered with us, right? It's this infinite love within the Holy Trinity. So this verse from John, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love." So that's it, man, right? At the end of the day, it's all about the other and the love that God is for us and how we can kind of translate that love to other people. So
Yeah,
I think that's pretty cool. Just kind of wrap it all up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's great, man.
good stuff. And,
Yeah, everyone needs to read John. If you haven't read the book of John, you need to read the book of John. It is absolutely the best.
John's
I
the
think
beloved.
it's the best book in the book.
One person who quotes John a lot is Chris Pratt, and he's one of the people who like fights for Christ in Hollywood. And they asked him in an interview this week because Guardians came out. They asked him if he feels like he's under attack, and he said, "Well, I'm not here to be. I'm not here for the earthly stuff. So yes, of course, I'm always under attack, but I'm here to make my mark in heaven and make my thing. And yes, I do this stuff to enjoy it, but like I am a man of faith."
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's cool. Matthew McConaughey is too.
Matthew
It's
McConaughey,
like,
I love
it's
Matthew
pretty.
McConaughey.
It's pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
when you find like people like that, and you're like, wow, there are famous people who are not ashamed of Christ and don't put away. Because like I saw this thing with Matthew McConaughey where he was like talking about God, and he said he was doing it on the Academy. And he said people that I broke bread with and they prayed. He's like, I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to embarrass them. When I was talking about Jesus, like I watched them like sit on their hands because they're like, oh, this will tarnish my image.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's crazy. It's cool to see when like people like that,
Yeah.
that are grounded, you know,
Yep.
can be true to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Chris Pratt. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, me too. Happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. This will come out after Mother's Day, but yeah, we were thinking of you.
Little shout out for the moms.
Stay rooted in Christ. Appreciate you guys.
Listening. Peace.
Stay rooted in Christ.
Yeah, this is it. Cool. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Peace.